After the age of 50, the body begins to renegotiate its relationship with strength. What once responded eagerly to intensity now asks for clarity. This is not decline, but a shift in priorities shaped by biology. Muscle tissue still adapts, bones still respond to load, and the nervous system still learns, but the rules governing progress become more refined. The body grows less tolerant of wasted effort and more responsive to precision. Strength stops being something that is forced and becomes something that is invited. In earlier decades, recovery happens quickly and errors are forgiven. Joints rebound, inflammation resolves, and the nervous system resets with little consequence. After 50, recovery still occurs, but it unfolds more slowly and more selectively. Connective tissues remodel at a calmer pace, and the nervous system becomes more protective of structures it senses as vulnerable. Movements that rely on momentum, speed, or excessive load can trigger caution rather than adaptation. The body does not resist effort itself, but it resists confusion and instability. This is why intelligent movement becomes essential. Strength is no longer measured solely by how much weight is lifted, but by how efficiently force is produced and absorbed. When muscles work in harmony, joints are spared unnecessary stress. When movement patterns are clear, the nervous system allows greater output. Science shows that motor efficiency increases when the brain perceives safety. Muscles activate more fully when joints feel supported and aligned. Strength, then, becomes a collaboration between structure and control rather than a contest of force. The aging nervous system plays a central role in this transformation. It prioritizes balance, coordination, and predictability. If a movement feels unstable, output is reduced automatically. This is not weakness but intelligence. The body is choosing longevity over short-term performance. When exercises respect this preference, progress accelerates quietly. When they ignore it, frustration and discomfort often follow. Many people mistake this response for loss of ability, when in fact it is a demand for better information. Intelligent strength training places effort where the body is designed to handle it. Large muscles absorb load, smaller joints guide motion, and the spine transmits force without excessive movement. This distribution reflects human biomechanics, not fitness trends. When training aligns with this design, strength feels smoother and more sustainable. Movements require less conscious effort because the body recognizes them as efficient. Energy expenditure decreases even as capacity increases. There is also an emotional component to this shift. Pain or repeated discomfort erodes confidence in movement. The body begins to hesitate, and hesitation limits strength as effectively as weakness. Intelligent movement rebuilds trust. Each controlled, pain-free repetition reinforces the idea that movement is safe. Over time, the nervous system relaxes its guard, allowing greater activation and fluidity. Strength returns not through aggression, but through reassurance. After 50, effort must be meaningful. Random intensity creates noise in the system, while precision creates clarity. Muscles respond to clear signals, joints respond to alignment, and the nervous system responds to safety. When these elements work together, strength emerges naturally. It does not demand attention or validation. It shows itself in ease of movement, steadiness of posture, and confidence in everyday actions, reflecting a body that is no longer chasing force but expressing intelligence. Weak glute muscles rarely announce themselves directly. They do not ache in the way knees do, nor do they stiffen as obviously as the lower back. Instead, their absence is felt through compensation, through the quiet redistribution of effort to structures that were never designed to carry so much load. After 50, this compensation becomes increasingly costly. The glutes, particularly the gluteus maximus and medius, play a central role in controlling hip movement and stabilizing the pelvis. When they fail to engage fully, the body must still accomplish the same tasks, standing, walking, squatting, so it recruits whatever tissues are available. Most often, that burden shifts to the knees and the lumbar spine. From a biomechanical perspective, the hips are meant to generate force, while the knees are designed primarily to guide motion. When the glutes are weak or neurologically underactive, the knees begin to absorb forces meant for the hips. This increases compressive stress on the joint surfaces and surrounding ligaments. In younger individuals, these tissues tolerate overload reasonably well, but with age, cartilage hydration decreases and recovery slows. What begins as mild discomfort can evolve into persistent stiffness or inflammation, not because the joint is fragile, but because it is being asked to do the wrong job repeatedly. The lower back experiences a similar fate. Without strong glute engagement, the pelvis loses stability during movement. To compensate, the lumbar spine increases its range of motion, extending and flexing more than necessary to create momentum. This places repeated shear forces on spinal discs and facet joints. Over time, the nervous system perceives this instability and responds with protective muscle tension. The back feels tight, not because it is strong, but because it is guarding. Many people interpret this tension as a need for stretching or rest, when in reality it is a signal that support is missing elsewhere. Squats, in particular, expose this imbalance. A well-executed squat is a coordinated hip-dominant movement, but without active glutes it becomes knee-dominant. The torso leans forward, the knees travel excessively, and the load bypasses the muscles designed to handle it. This is why squats can feel increasingly uncomfortable with age, even when performed carefully. The issue is not the depth or the weight, but the distribution of force. Without glutes doing their share, the movement loses its internal balance. There is also a neurological component that deepens this pattern. The brain is efficient and prefers familiar strategies. If the glutes have been underused for years, the nervous system stops prioritizing them, even when they are capable of contributing. Movement becomes habitual rather than optimal. Each repetition reinforces the same compensation, strengthening the wrong tissues for the task. Over time, the knees and lower back become overtrained and under-recovered, while the glutes remain understimulated. Reactivating the glutes reverses this cascade. When these muscles resume their role as primary force generators, joint stress decreases almost immediately. The knees track more smoothly because the hips control alignment. The spine moves less because it no longer needs to compensate for instability. Pain often diminishes not through rest, but through redistribution of effort. The body feels lighter, not because it has lost weight, but because movement is no longer burdened by inefficiency. This shift restores confidence in movement. When joints stop absorbing excessive force, the nervous system relaxes its protective response. Muscles activate more evenly, posture improves, and everyday actions feel less demanding. The body returns to a pattern that reflects its original design, where large muscles protect smaller joints, and movement flows through strength rather than strain. Glute-focused exercises do more than strengthen muscle fibers. They restore dialogue between the brain and the body, a conversation that often grows quiet with age. Movement is not directed by muscles alone but by neural circuits that decide when, how strongly, and in what sequence muscles should contract. When certain muscles are rarely used, their representation in the brain becomes faint. This is not a permanent loss, but a gradual fading of attention. The glutes, especially in people who sit often, are among the first to be affected. They remain physically present yet neurologically underrepresented, waiting for a clear signal that never quite arrives. Aging intensifies this effect. The nervous system becomes more conservative, favoring patterns that feel stable even if they are inefficient. Smaller muscles around the joints, particularly in the lower back and thighs, begin to dominate movement because they provide a sense of immediate control. The glutes, which require coordinated activation across larger ranges of motion, are bypassed. This creates a body that moves cautiously rather than powerfully. Balance feels uncertain, not because strength is gone, but because the system responsible for organizing that strength has lost clarity. When glute-focused exercises are introduced, something subtle but profound happens. The brain receives precise sensory input from the hips. Slow, controlled movements provide clear feedback about position, tension, and force. This sensory richness helps rebuild the brain's map of the glute muscles. Each repetition strengthens not just muscle tissue, but the neural pathways that command it. Over time, the signal becomes stronger and more reliable. The glutes begin to activate automatically rather than on command, integrating into movement rather than being consciously forced. This neurological restoration has immediate effects on balance. The pelvis acts as the body's central platform, and when it is stabilized by active glutes, the entire system becomes more predictable. Weight shifts feel controlled rather than abrupt. Standing on one leg, stepping sideways, or turning becomes smoother because the hips guide motion rather than react to it. Research in motor control shows that improved proximal stability leads to better distal movement, meaning that when the hips are stable, the legs and feet move with greater accuracy and confidence. Spinal stability also improves through this process. The glutes connect functionally to the spine through the pelvis, influencing how force travels through the torso. When they are active, the spine does not need to generate excessive motion to compensate. Instead, it becomes a conduit for force rather than a source of it. This reduces unnecessary strain on spinal joints and discs. The back feels supported, not rigid, because stability comes from muscular coordination rather than protective tension. What many people describe as improved posture is often the result of this neuromuscular integration. The body aligns itself naturally when force is distributed correctly. The chest lifts slightly, the pelvis finds a neutral position, and the head balances more easily over the spine. These changes are not imposed through conscious correction but emerge spontaneously when the nervous system senses stability below. Movement begins to feel organized rather than effortful. Perhaps most importantly, this restoration of communication rebuilds trust. The nervous system releases more power when it believes the body can handle it safely. As glute activation becomes consistent, movements that once felt risky begin to feel secure. Confidence grows not from willpower, but from repeated experiences of control and safety. The body moves as a unified whole again, guided by clear signals and efficient patterns that honor both strength and stability. Low impact, controlled movement aligns closely with how the human body is designed to function, especially in later decades of life. Strength in the real world is rarely expressed through maximal force. It appears instead in transitions, in the ability to rise from a chair without hesitation, to step down from a curb with control, or to regain balance after a small misstep. These actions rely on timing, coordination, and muscle sequencing rather than sheer power. When exercise mirrors these demands, the nervous system recognizes it as relevant and responds more completely. As people age, recovery systems change. Muscle protein synthesis slows slightly, connective tissue adapts more gradually, and inflammatory responses linger longer than they once did. High-impact or high-load training can overwhelm these systems, not because it is inherently harmful, but because it demands recovery that the body may no longer prioritize efficiently. Low-impact movements allow muscles to be stimulated without triggering excessive inflammation. Blood flow increases steadily, delivering oxygen and nutrients while clearing metabolic byproducts. This creates an internal environment where adaptation can occur without strain. Controlled movement also improves joint health in a way that static rest cannot. Joints depend on motion to receive nutrition. Cartilage has no direct blood supply and relies on gentle compression and decompression to absorb nutrients from surrounding fluid. Slow, deliberate exercises provide this stimulus without excessive wear. Over time, joints feel less stiff, not because they are forced into flexibility, but because they are being nourished through appropriate movement. This effect is particularly noticeable in the hips and knees, where rhythmic motion restores comfort and range. There is a psychological benefit as well. Movements that feel manageable reduce fear, and fear has a profound impact on how the body moves. When people worry about pain or injury, the nervous system increases muscle tension and reduces range of motion as a protective measure. This stiffness often leads to the very discomfort it is meant to prevent. Low-impact exercises build a sense of predictability. Each repetition confirms that the body can move without consequence. As fear diminishes, muscles relax, coordination improves, and movement becomes more fluid. Circulation plays a quiet but critical role in this process. Aging can reduce vascular elasticity, affecting how efficiently blood reaches working tissues. Gentle, repeated contractions act like a pump, enhancing circulation without overloading the heart or joints. Improved blood flow supports muscle endurance and accelerates recovery between sessions. The body begins to feel warmer, more responsive, and less prone to sudden stiffness. Energy levels improve not through stimulation, but through consistency. Perhaps the most important aspect of low-impact training is its sustainability. Exercises that leave the body feeling supported rather than depleted are more likely to be repeated. Consistency, not intensity, drives long-term adaptation. When movement becomes part of daily life rather than a periodic challenge, the body responds with steady improvement. Strength accumulates quietly, reinforcing itself through use. Over time, this approach reshapes how people relate to exercise. It becomes a practice rather than a performance. Each session contributes to a sense of capability that carries into everyday life. Tasks feel easier not because they are avoided, but because the body is prepared for them. Strength expresses itself as readiness, as the confidence to move without hesitation, rooted in patterns that respect the body's changing needs. Aging well begins with a shift in perspective, away from the idea that the body must be resisted or corrected, and toward the understanding that it is constantly adapting to the signals it receives. Every movement, every posture, every exercise choice sends information to the nervous system about what is expected and what must be protected. When those signals are aligned with biology, the body responds with resilience rather than resistance. Strength, in this context, is not an attempt to preserve youth, but a way of supporting function as it evolves. The structure of the human body does not fundamentally change with age, but its tolerance does. Joints prefer alignment over force. Muscles respond best to clarity rather than confusion. The nervous system becomes more selective, conserving energy and reducing risk whenever possible. When exercises ignore these realities, progress slows and discomfort increases. When movement respects them, adaptation continues in a quieter, more sustainable way. This is not about lowering standards, but about choosing strategies that work with physiology rather than against it. Precision in movement is one of the most powerful signals the body can receive. When a movement is performed with control and awareness, sensory receptors in muscles and joints send detailed feedback to the brain. This information allows the nervous system to refine coordination, improving efficiency and reducing unnecessary tension. Over time, precise movement requires less effort, not because strength has increased dramatically, but because waste has been eliminated. Energy is directed where it is needed, and the body feels lighter as a result. Awareness deepens this process. Paying attention to how movement feels rather than how it looks shifts focus inward, where real change occurs. Subtle adjustments in stance, breath, or tempo can transform an exercise from stressful to supportive. This awareness builds self-regulation, allowing the body to adapt session by session. Instead of following rigid rules, movement becomes responsive. The body learns that it is being listened to, and in response, it offers greater cooperation. Respecting biology also means honoring recovery. Rest is not a pause in progress but a phase of adaptation. Muscles strengthen, connective tissue remodels, and neural pathways consolidate during periods of rest. When recovery is rushed or ignored, the body responds with fatigue and protective inhibition. When it is respected, progress continues even between workouts. This rhythm of effort and recovery reflects natural biological cycles, reinforcing long-term resilience. Compassion plays an unexpected role in this process. Approaching movement with patience reduces internal pressure, which in turn reduces physical tension. Stress hormones influence muscle tone, inflammation, and pain perception. When exercise is framed as care rather than correction, the body remains in a state more conducive to healing and adaptation. This does not mean avoiding challenge, but choosing challenges that build rather than erode confidence. Over time, this partnership between knowledge and compassion reshapes the experience of aging. Movement feels intentional rather than obligatory. Strength expresses itself through ease, stability, and confidence. The body continues to adapt, not in spite of age, but in dialogue with it, guided by respect for design and an understanding of what it truly needs. If you found these insights helpful and want to continue learning practical, science-backed strategies to stay healthy, strong, and vibrant as you age, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends and family who could benefit, and subscribe to our channel for daily senior wellness tips, nutrition guidance, and simple lifestyle hacks designed to enhance longevity and quality of life. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video that can help you live healthier, happier, and more empowered every day.